it's not your aim. There are 5 habits, pure macro, zero mechanics that quietly cost you rounds, and I watch Immortal players make them every single day. I'm Daniel, I picked 800 Terra Radiant, played in the Valorant Challengers League and coached over 100 students at this point, from Gold all the way up to Radiant. These same 5 patterns show up in every single game. Doesn't matter what role you play, doesn't matter what rank you are stuck at it. Number 1 is the most expensive of them. Spacing. Spacing is the distance between you and your teammates. And it's really important, because if you are too far away from your teammates, you're not gonna be able to trade them, which means killing the enemy that just killed your teammate. You want to try your best and always keep the distance between you and your teammates close, so that you're able to trade them if a fight happens. Valorant has a constant up and down of the probability of you winning or losing the round. Let's imagine this situation so you can understand better what spacing is and why it's so important. You are in a 5v5 and you're playing on defense. Both you and attackers have a full buy, so it's around 50% of you or them winning this round. Now your duelist decides to search for a kill on A main on Ascent, and you have 2 options. Option 1 is to go and be close to him to trade and pick off his contact. Option 2, sit inside and wait for him to either get a kill or die. Which one do you think is the best? Exactly, option 1, because option 2 leans completely on your duelist and puts you already out from the game as a spectator. Let's also analyze it from the duelist perspective, for example in attack. A lot of duelists forget about who and how far are the teammates behind them. If you're playing Neon, you obviously are faster than your teammates, and you will get in front of the choke faster than your team. This means that if you don't wait for your team to get closer to you so that they are gonna be able to follow you up and trade you, you will just crash into sight alone by yourself and most of the time die. And only then you will look at the minimap and realize that your team is still far back. It's not their fault, they ran to you, but you were just too fast. There are 2 roles, the one who is behind and the one who is in front. If you're behind your teammates, it's your job to get out your knife and get closer to them, or ask them to wait for you. If you're the first one, then it's harder, but at least sometimes, as before entering a site, you need to glance at the minimap to make sure that your teammates are close enough to trade, and only then entry. Believe me, every Radiant and pro player has nailed this down, because spacing is the foundation, but it gets worse on defense, and for a reason most of you have never pointed out. Quick note before we move on, if you want me to actually watch your gameplay and tell you what's going wrong, that's what the Melusics Club is built around. You submit a ranked VOD, I review it live during one of our twice weekly sessions, and you get a full recording and notes either way. If you're there live, you can hop on stage and it basically becomes a one-on-one while everyone else watches and learns. Link is in the description. That spacing problem I just walked you through, it actually gets 10 times worse on defense, and not for the obvious reason. Most of you, the second a round starts on defender side, you flip a switch in your brain. The switch says, wait, hold, let them come to me. That's the mistake. That switch is why you're losing rounds you should be winning. Let me show you why. Defense doesn't mean wait and wrap. What you should be doing is defending in a more proactive way. People that just approach the game and even up to Ascendant keep thinking that defending just means sitting inside and waiting for the enemies to attack. And sometimes it's the right thing to do, but sometimes it's completely the opposite. Let me walk you through how you should actually be playing in defense and why and when just sitting inside and waiting is the biggest mistake you can make. In defense, it's really important to search for the enemies. I don't just mean recklessly dry picking them, I mean insta-airing with Sova, carefully searching a pick as a jet, putting a camera aggressively to take initial information as Cypher. By doing this, you will gather information and space as in physical ground. That is gonna allow you to understand where the enemies are gravitating towards, so that you're gonna be able to rotate before they end up hitting a site. Or if you won't be able to rotate in time, at least you will be ready with your smokes already in place and with your teammates. Either your idea is to hold site or just play retake. To make you better understand why this is so important, let's make an example. An example in which you as defenders just sit inside, without peeking to see where the enemies are, without getting any information. You just wait. If the attackers don't make any noise, you won't know until the very last moment that they are hitting your side. And you will find yourself most of the times in a 5v2 situation. The round is practically lost. So trying to fight for an area and getting information at the start or mid-round is fundamental for 2 reasons. Reason 1, because you need to get information to be able to understand where the enemies are going beforehand, to rotate, prepare and smoke. Reason 2, because you need to make them use abilities before they get to the choke of the side, so that they won't have as many to execute. So you do not want to just be sitting inside when you don't have any information and any space. But here is the tricky part. You also don't want to be too aggressive on too many positions. Taking a fight and trying to get space is a risk. So if your duelist is already playing aggressive on B main, you as any other role should not be risking dying on A. Even if you sit on side, you know that your duelist has B. You can deduct that the enemies are going A since B is clear. Once you're playing proactive in defense, the next mistakes is what stops you from converting all that good positioning into actual wins. The next thing is playing in the right way. By playing in the right way, I mean players constantly trying too hard to be the perfect support and to always play and help the team as much as they can. The problem comes when while doing all this, they forget the most important part, which is playing themselves. What I'm saying is when you try to rely on your team to do the play instead of doing them yourself, or when you're scared of doing one. Imagine that you're on attack as Omen, and you find yourself in front of Garage and Heaven, while your team is trying to get a lobby control. You hear people leave from Garage, and here you have two options. Option 1, play alone and get the space enemy just left. Option 2, call to your team to come see and wait for them. Right now you might be thinking that option 2 is actually the correct one, but you're wrong. By waiting for your team, you're also giving time to the defenders to realize that it's not A anymore and they will rotate back to C. But if you would have gone for a play and at the same time call it to your team, now as the enemies are rotating back from A to C, you're gonna be able to catch them off guard from an aggressive position and kill them, which is gonna allow your team to get the site almost for free. You just wander around literally by yourself. To rank up, you do not need to do a play every round. 2 to 3 rounds per game is already enough to make your win rate grow and rank up. So do not be scared of going for a play. Be the playmaker and not just a passenger who relies poorly on the team. The fourth point is gun and positioning. What do I mean by this is that in Valorant you have multiple guns, and each gun actually is different, has its strengths and weaknesses. And what you want to do is basically always play in a position where your gun can perform as best as it can. To be able to understand what I mean, we need to divide this into 2 layers. Layer 1. Your gun has to dictate your position. Imagine this. You're playing defense as Sova, and you find yourself in the second round playing with a Spectre. The Spectre is an SMG, good in close to medium ranges versus enemies who don't have a shield. Also, it's a gun which gets harder to control as the range gets longer. Now that we know all the strengths and weaknesses of the Spectre, let's think once again where we are playing. A-Long, which has longer fights. So by playing a Spectre in this position, you're making your own life complicated. So here, you either should have played with a Marshal or just change the position and play Garage or B, for example. Layer 2 is the situations dictates your gun. Most people always go for a Vandal or Phantom, and they think that all the rest is just for eco, which is totally wrong. The other guns as Operators, Outlaw, Shorty and Judge all have a place to be, which depends on your role, the enemy economy and your team's economy. There are even better situations for Phantom versus Vandals. Let's say you're playing Breeze on attack. Most of the fights in Breeze are long range, so playing Phantom here, especially in some situations as when you want to pick mid, is just counterproductive. Obviously if you're playing Neon or Jet and you're dashing into side, then playing Phantom or Jet makes sense since you're gonna make the distance between you and the enemies much shorter thanks to abilities. But if you're playing Sova, for example, you mostly will have long range fights, and the Vandal can actually help you more with those. Another example is when you should be playing a Shorty. Mostly you should be playing a Shorty in really tight and close angles. A perfect example can be a Viper ultimate. By understanding the situation and picking the better gun, you're making it easier for yourself to play the round and get kills. The fifth mistake is autopiloting in the buy phase. I left this one for last on purpose, because everything I have covered up to this point, none of it works if your brain is off during the buy phase. The problem when you autopilot in the buy phase is that you are not preparing yourself for nothing. So then when there are starts, we will mostly just play reactively and we'll have to think on what to do on the fly. Which by the way is hard even for Radiant players. The proof is that high elo players aren't smarter in the moment. Well, maybe they are, but what actually makes them better is being prepared and knowing already what to do when the situation happens. And by doing this, they can as well focus more on their mechanics. So what I suggest you guys to do in the buy phase to be prepared for a situation is to establish the if-then framework. The if comes from the previous round and from what you might expect them doing in this round. What did the enemies just do? Did one of them keep lurking? Did they hit a different side 3 rounds in a row? After this we have the then, which is your pre-decided response. For example, If they rush my site again, I drop my molly at the choke point and immediately fall back to play retake with my team. If their lurker shows up again, I will call this angle for 10 seconds more. What I want you to do is to have a decision per round about your own play. Look, I'm not going to pretend any of this is easy. You're going to mess most of this up in the first 10 times you try. That's normal. The reason almost every player I have coached climbs once they fix this isn't because the fixes are magical. It's because these 5 mistakes are the 5 things that quietly cost you the rounds your aim deserves to win. If you only have to take one thing from this video, take this. Stop autopiloting. Pick one of the 5, the one you recognize yourself in the most, and just work on that one for your next 10 ranked games. Not all 5, one, then move on to the next. I'm confident that if you stop autopiloting, start playing your weapons range, fix your spacing, and actually think about your macro impact, you'll break through whatever rank you are stuck in right now. If this helped, subscribe so you see the next one. Melu 6 Club link is in the description if you want me to actually review your games. See you in the next one.